Thanks everybody for joining this this session here in our virtual conference. It's a little different approach, but glad to be joining you virtually and talking about this topic. What we're going to talk about today is rapid project development, what we've termed flash track in our company. Flash track being faster than fast track, and I know the Construction Industry Institute and many others in the industry have used that term also. So appreciate you joining our session, and again, we'll be taking questions in the comments part of our in the comments section here. We'll be live taking questions throughout the presentation, so please post your questions there, and you can always stop by our virtual booth also, and we'll be there to talk with you. Now, for our company, probably like many of yours, we're all operate in the automotive industry. We do a safety topic. Safety is critical to us. We want to maintain a safety culture in all that we do, and that's really reflected in the fact that we've had more than 3.5 million work hours, almost approaching 4 million work hours now, without a lost time incident. Really great accomplishment in our industry, and something we're wanting to keep going, and we won't be satisfied with that. We always want to maintain zero. So our safety topic for today is driving safety. As we look, probably a lot of us travel. A lot of us are probably traveling more by car now or vehicle than we used to. Maybe used to fly someplace that it took 5 or 6 hours to get to, and now in a drive time. And now you're saying, hey, let's go ahead and drive that just to stay out of the airports and exposure. So driving is one of the riskiest things we all do when we go about our day or our lives. So I read a statistic recently, and right, wrong, or indifferent, but that I think people 16 to almost 30, 16 to 28, I think it was, that you're 4 times more likely to die in a car accident than of COVID, given the current statistics, and that was just about a week ago. So a very risky endeavor that we go into, and there's no reason for us to make it more risky. So when you're out there, you're driving, keep your attention on the road. Don't text and drive. We're all tempted to text and drive. Hands-free is better, but I'm sure many of you have seen there's a lot of studies that say hands-free is also not safe. Your mind is still distracted. So keep focus on the road and drive as safe as you can, and also adjust to weather conditions. That's something a lot of us don't do. We're kind of, especially in the Midwest or North here, we're kind of used to all kinds of weather conditions. But if you got heavy rain, lots of water on the road, ice, etc., let's adjust to those weather conditions. So I appreciate everybody listening to our safety topic there, and make sure you drive safe out there. So what we're going to go through today is a little bit of what is flash track, what is this rapid project development approach that we're talking about, what are some critical factors, lessons learned in implementing this type of approach, and how do you maintain control when you're moving that fast? How do you it's good to move fast like that, but you need to maintain control and control budget and schedule, etc. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Q&A throughout in the chat, and stop by our booth anytime, email us, etc. So we're going to try and cover a lot about this topic in a short period of time, but it's obviously a big topic. I've actually done half-day seminars talking about this in a group, in a panel. So we'll try to give the highlight of what we're talking about. So what is flash track, right? So essentially flash track, we all have known that over the years, we've kind of migrated from design, bid, build, traditional approach to project development to fast track, right? Design, build, fast track. And so as we went through that, there became these needs to, how do we move even faster than fast track? And the term got developed, flash track. It got kind of officially coined by the Construction Industry Institute. I think it was in 2015. But we've been using it in the industry for a long time, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. So essentially, fast track, design, build, fast track, created overlaps of the major phases and the interface, I guess you would call it, between the phases. And this flash track model, and we'll go through it in a minute, it actually jumps phases around, so intra-phase overlapping. So we'll go through a little chart that'll show you what we're talking about there. This has happened because there's a growing, and the reason we're getting more and more flash track type projects is that shorter product lifespans. So we have these products, they have shorter lifespans, which means we need to get new manufacturing up faster in order to meet the market demands. We've increased competition. So increased competition has been bringing new products, new technologies to market. Means we got to get up and running faster in our manufacturing operations than maybe we historically did. Technology changes all kind of play into that. Faster ROIs. So, if you have a plant that can make a profitability as soon as it gets into production, well, the shorter time that you can have from the start of the outflow of cash to the start of production, obviously the better ROI. So people are looking to increase their ROI requirements and increased regulatory requirements. Increased regulatory requirements have caused some of the front end to extend out a little bit. And, we have to make up for that in kind of the design build, development, design build, execution of the back end. So also some of the regulatory requirements have caused a need for, change in product. And again, I'm trying to get products to market faster. The essential underpinning of making a flash track project successful is engaging as a partnering environment where we're bringing later phase suppliers and contractors in earlier into the project. So it's kind of an integration throughout the value chain or supply chain. And historically, it's not that new. Historically, it wasn't called flash track, but these types of methods have been used, for disaster recoveries, for first to market, movers that we need to get this plant up and running for, for major problem projects with recovery paths, that kind of stuff. So it really goes back. I remember there's a story of the Panama Canal and the fix after it had lots of problems in the beginning, kind of the fixes and some of the things that went on there, bringing craft and suppliers on and making them part of that process. And, that was really part of flash track. And again, this is the practices and policies or procedures have been developed better and better over time. And now flash track is becoming more and more in demand for the reasons we talked about. And I think it was Mary Barra the CEO of General Motors who recently said that, they're looking at trying to develop things in this super fast mode, kind of like they shifted for ventilator production in this pandemic. And I think she even mentioned the term that they're using internally is called ventilator fast, right? It's just moving extremely fast, streamlined to accomplish a goal. So flash track, this explains kind of the different approaches to project development. So we have the traditional approach that we talked about. This was how things used to always be done, and it's still about how 30% of industrial projects are done in the United States, or call it North America. So you develop engineering. The engineering is usually developed through stages. So you're talking about an FEL 0, an FEL 1, 2, 3, if you're familiar with those, or say a concept business plan development, conceptual design, preliminary design, design development, final design. Then you take your final design out, you buy, the contractors, you buy the equipment, you buy what you need, and then you execute construction. Obviously a very rigid phased program, and it takes longer. So you see we marked here the yellow dot kind of just to reflect the period of time that it takes when you go through engineering, procurement, construction. This used to be called design, bid, build. Lots of different titles and things to call this. Then you have what got developed over years and is probably about 60% of the business, say today, roughly, in the industrial world in North America is kind of design, build, EPC, fast track. So that's where you overlap, you get the engineering going, you get the engineering far enough away with early work packages that you can execute some of the procurement. You know, you can select your contractors early on after conceptual design phase. You can do some of the early procurement, and then you can overlap those phases a little bit. And then with that early procurement, you can start construction earlier, and you can get to with that overlap, you're basically taking those traditional phases and just overlapping them. And it's going to, because you're overlapping them, it's going to speed up the project a little bit. You can see here, we got the end kind of visually marked with a triangle. And then you have Flash Track. You know, Flash Track project, it mixes the phases. So right off the bat, you can get some of the procurement done. You can get your selection of contractors and some of your key suppliers done just based on relationship and qualification-based selection. Bring them in early. You can get construction in early, involved in the process, get design, all overlapping with design. So you get your big procurement, your long lead items, your things that are going to have major impacts on the project selected early. And we'll get into some of the different mindset you have to do that early. And then as you get through engineering, then you'll make some of the smaller procurement items, say such as widgets and actual units, HVAC units you're going to select, et cetera. And of course, construction is happening simultaneously to that. So, and you can see just visually represented here, the schedule gets pulled back even further with the Flash Track environment. So as I mentioned, Flash Track isn't really new. The first Flash Track project I was personally involved in was about 17 years ago. And this was an automotive factory, got hit by a tornado in the Midwest here in the United States. The central utilities complex was severely damaged. The site was obviously damaged, and production, including the paint shop and body shop especially, were significantly impacted. So we got the call. I got a call. The guy who was the main contact for this customer, this international automotive manufacturer, got the call. I believe it was at 2 or 3 a.m. after the tornado hit. We mobilized a team. We were on site the next day with key, about 7 individuals, myself being one of them, key engineers and constructors. Started working immediately to get the reconstruction underway. Within 48 hours, we had crews working on the reconstruction. The first week, 200 plus contractors and suppliers were engaged in the effort. By week 3, we had mobilized up to 1,800 skilled tradespeople, and we brought the engineering out to the field, and we had a whole team of engineers, multiple trailers that were doing the engineering, the re-engineering and stamping the drawings and getting everything done just in time in the field for construction. So, literally, when we do Fast Track design build, we're getting work packages done and we're getting those out early so that construction can start earlier. This is, and we've done this on several projects, but this is literally just in time. So we're doing something today. Tomorrow we're going to do something, and they're designing it today. They're going to do their quality check, finalize, stamp it, whatever, and we're out there building it tomorrow. Or buying the materials we need tomorrow and building it the next day. So really, really fast-moving type project. To give you an example, in this one, May 8th, the tornado hit. May 9th, we had team members on site. Many of the contractors, we all had team members on site. And June 30th, the production plant was up and making sellable vehicles again. So, and July 13th, we began demobilization of the site. So, between May 9th and July 13th, $103 million of design and construction was executed on that project. So you think about that. That's a lot of burn per week to get this plant up and running again. So really, really a Flash Track project. And like I said, it's not new, but through all these learnings over the years and through more and more use of Flash Track, we're getting better and better as an industry, and especially here at the Austin Company, at being able to make these things happen and work this fast. This is another example just a couple years ago. This was a fire. A fire had hit this plant of this client of ours, of the Austin Company. and completely devastating fire. This plant was the only plant that made a specialized SKU of a certain product, and they only had one competitor globally that also made this, and they only have one plant that made it. So, the customer here is at risk of a few things. One, they're going to go dark on the shelves with their product. Two, they're going to lose the market share potentially to their competitor. And so this was a very important project to get back up on track as fast as possible. Adding a little complexity to it, that the facility was completely a loss. It was a complete loss. So they decided quickly, within a couple days, we're just going to go to a new location. So first we had to go find a new site, and within Austin we have a site location group, and they can help with this, and there's others out there that can. But so we had to quickly engage in a site location effort to find new sites. We ended up looking at multiple states. We had to negotiate an incentives package, to locate in that new state. If we located in a new state, we were also looking to stay in the existing state. Simultaneously to that site location effort, we started preliminary concept design so that we could keep the project moving, flash track, right? So more than 25 contractors, equipment providers, and suppliers were engaged within the first couple of weeks. It was absolutely critical. We needed all new production equipment. We had to figure out what we could get, how we could make things work, etc. And so June 4th was the fire. June 6th, June 6th we received June 5th we received the call. June 6th we were officially engaged, and our team was on site working. And our site selection team had found a new site, negotiated incentives, and closed the deal to acquire a new site by October 14th. And we were able to start construction, obviously, on that site. It's about a 45,000 square foot facility. The new facility is down in the bottom right picture here. So not a huge facility, but 45,000 square foot. So we were able to start on October 14th in the field. Again, just-in-time engineering, moving as fast as you could possibly move, and we were able to get production started again in March 23rd of 2017. So again, you learn a lot of lessons as you go through these of how things, and like I said, the first one I showed you I was involved with almost 20 years ago, and there's been many in the middle and throughout. So we've learned more and more over the years how to make these projects work. So why execute a flash track project? Why do this? It seems like, man, this is a big deal. It's crazy. It's got to be a big challenge. And for us, we like big challenges. So these are the fun projects, and we really like to do them. They're all fun, but these are especially fun because you get to face challenges and overcome together. But from a simple financial standpoint, if the plant can be producing, and it can be producing EBITDA or profit, quickly after startup, it usually makes sense, if the market's there to sell the product, to try and get it done as fast as possible. So this example I'm giving here, this is a real world example. I can't disclose who it is, or who it was, but the production revenue out of this plant was $28 million a day. So that's a lot. It was a big plant, obviously. $28 million a day in sellable product. The company made a net EBITDA. I'm talking net after corporate overheads, after everything. So obviously at the plant level, we made more, but the net EBITDA of about 6% on average. So if you take that against the 28 million, you're talking about $1.68 million a day in EBITDA and profit. The project cost was about $100 million. So if we apply, say there was a flash track premium, expediting cost on materials, overtime labor, all that kind of stuff, of about 15% of the 100 million. So $15 million. Now that's kind of taking a worst case scenario. I mean, 15-20%, a lot of people argue that the flash track scenario is the same or even less cost sometimes, because you eliminate general conditions costs, time in the field, all that kind of stuff. So there's an argument to be made there, but let's just, for the sake of a model, say 15%, there's a premium, $15 million on the $100 million project, making the project $115 million. But this scenario, 3 months were cut out of the schedule. So there was a study done, and compared to what would be a traditional schedule, 3 months, actually slightly more than 3 months, but let's say 3 months were cut out of the schedule. And this plant operated at the time on a 5-day production cycle. So 5 days a week, it was off on the weekend. So they regained 60 production days. So if you take that $1.68 million a day in EBITDA on profit, that's $100 million more in profit. And you got $100 million more in profit offset against the $15 million additional cost for the flash track effort. So the upside and just simple dollars and cents to the owner, to the plant owner, is $85.8 million. That's a pretty big upside. Makes a good argument for flash track in this scenario. Again, they had product that was profitable. They had a market that was demanding it. They could, they would quickly be profitable with their product if they could get up and running again. So very good argument. You can see how sometimes these flash track scenarios definitely make sense. So, and this doesn't factor in cost of money, anything like this. This is just dollars, plain simple cash calculations, dollars calculations. So these are the scenarios you can start to see where moving extremely fast makes sense, and dealing with the challenges of moving fast makes sense. So why consider other approaches? Some of these I have shared at other past events, but I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. This is a speech given by Bechtel, a study that they did of mega programs in the industry. So they found that 98% of projects, mega industrial projects, are stressed. 80% experience cost growth, and they experience an average of a 20-month scheduled slippage. Now, again, these are mega projects. So another look at the statistics, industrial projects in an Ernst & Young study showed that 78% of industrial projects, so not necessarily mega, but larger industrial projects, 78% of them are stressed projects, 73% of them experience schedule slippage, and 64% have cost overruns. Looking at a Construction Industry Institute analysis of multi-billions of dollars of projects, only 5.4% achieved their original cost and schedule goals. That resulted in a 16% loss of the portfolio net present value that was calculated when those projects were improved, or in the average Fortune 500 industrial company capital project portfolio, it was a $1.2 billion net present value impact on the bottom line. And these are all studies you can look up. We have the references in the bottom corners of the slide. So it's not really working. We can't sit when our house is on fire and say, hey, it's all fine. So not that flash track's the answer for everything, but we need to execute good normal project execution procedures and look at flash track when it makes sense. So what are some of those lessons learned that we've talked about when implementing flash track? So, there's a lot of things to consider, especially for us that have been in the automotive world for a long time. So the first is kind of cultural considerations, and these things really need to be in place, or else you'll try to go down a flash track delivery model process and you'll stumble. It won't work, which is, maybe you can learn from that, but it's better to have all these in place. So people have to be open to a new approach. People have to be open to flattening the hierarchy and distributing leadership more. We're kind of known historically, for those of us who've been working in automotive for like I have for 25 years, that we have a lot of layers, right? And we have a lot of approvals, and we have a lot of hierarchy. So we need to be open to flattening that. We need to be open to a supportive and partnering environment between owners and suppliers. That's something that in a lot of our worlds is a change. A lot of our worlds, it's sometimes more of a adversarial relationship, or not necessarily just an open, supportive partnering. We need executive alignment between the contractors, the suppliers, and the owner of the plant, so that everybody is on board with the same program. And we need to empower project teams. It kind of gets to flattening the hierarchy, but we need to maximize the decision making at the project level, remove redundant, unnecessary approval layers. One of the things I heard recently, again, back to that same interview with Mary Barra from General Motors, she talked about, they found in the ventilator projects that, a lot of the approvals that were in place weren't necessarily needed for approvals. They were just needed because people needed to know the information. So if that's the case, let's not set up all these approval layers. Let's just set up, somebody makes the decision and then shares with everybody and make sure the information is still shared. In our business, in our team, we like to call it an I intend to culture. So we want our folks to make the decisions, but we want them to share, hey, I intend to do this. That way, if there is any comments or questions or thoughts about it, coaching that we want to give, we can give it still. We're still getting the information and able to provide that, but the individuals, the distributed leadership is still making the decision. So these are important factors in culture that I think, through my lessons learned at least, kind of need to exist in order to make these projects successful. So from the procurement and contracting standpoint, it goes kind of back into the culture also. You have to be open to qualifications-based selection. You're not going to have final designs and final plans that you can bid out and go to 5 guys that you believe are qualified and take the lowest. We need to establish clear roles and accountabilities within our contracts and our purchases. We need to have a clear change management process. So that needs to be clear. We need to embrace more open book partnering environments. Again, that gets back to the whole partnering type of procurement. We need to align the stakeholder interests, and we can align those interests through the contracting models, through KPIs and incentives and whatnot, so that everybody's focused on the same goals and have the same rewards associated with those same goals. And we need to get used to the fact that, hey, we're going to spend a little bit more on the front end, and it's going to make a better overall project, right? Because we're going to go fast and it's going to be a good project. But we always say it's pennies spent for dollars. It costs pennies in the front end to save dollars in the back end. In the actual project execution, and I know this is not something that's popular to talk about right now because of COVID, but this co-locating of the stakeholders and team members, bring the engineers, like I mentioned about on that one tornado project, we brought the engineers to the field. They were dedicated. Bring the engineering team, bring the owner's core team, bring some of the equipment suppliers, bring the construction people all together in the same environment. With COVID, some of that's, in question now. We've seen a lot of different practices. We've tested some of our own. One of the practices we've tested is when we're in this type of environment, we have everybody who's working on the project keep a Teams meeting open all the time, unless they're in another meeting. So, so it's like you're there. It's like you would walk by their cube and see, oh, are they in their seat or not, right? And you can jump in and talk to them. But, we're not sure what the answer is, but co-locating and making sure everybody's dedicated and focused on the project is critical. We need to minimize the handoffs and maximize the coordination and buy-in of handoffs. That's really critical when you're moving this fast. We need to minimize chances of dropping the baton and the handoffs. And then we need to make sure that everybody knows, okay, I'm going to get this done. I have to get this done in time to hand it off to this guy who's got to do his next step. And we do this through a variety of things, called pull planning, or in Austin, we've been doing it for 50 years, called a construction control planning, where everybody's kind of bought in and working together. We need to establish joint KPI scorecards for the projects. That's a joint across the project so that everybody engaged in a project can look at these, 9 or 10 KPIs and say, okay, what's my role in that KPI and are we working or not? We need to do regular team building events. It's something that, in the construction industry, we probably don't do a lot, and probably a lot of people think, hey, automotive and construction folks, we all think we're of the same cloth. We think, okay, that's the soft stuff, right? But it's really important. We need to make sure there's regular executive check-ins to keep alignment, to make sure a crack in the team doesn't become a crevice, and to make sure that we have rapid resolution of any concerns anybody has. And of course, we need to have a startup and procurement focused front end. That's how these things work. You start with the end in mind, and start of production. What do we need to get there? Okay, we need startup and commissioning. We need to get back all the way up with all the stakeholders involved buying into their handoff throughout the whole thing. And then this RPRS is right people, right seats. I mean, obviously with any team and any operation, you got to have the right people in the right seats. And if you find out they're not the right people, we need to make the change rapidly. This is a little chart, and I won't spend a lot of time on it. You can Google and find the reference. It's Construction Industry Institute RT311, and also Journal of Construction Engineering Management that talks about the connection of project performance with trust. Essentially, what these studies found is that, you know, there were multiple project performance factors, and studying a large amount of projects, there was a correlation between rated trust of the team members, rated by themselves, and team efficiency, and the performance of team efficiency, cost, quality, rework, timing of decisions, and schedule. So in a quick summary, what they came up with is when the trust scores are up and people believe that there was more trust amongst the different parties on the team, including the different contracting parties, you know, not just the team within the one company, but within multiple companies, that the cost of the project generally was down, the schedule was faster, and the quality was better versus other similar projects that were studied that had lower levels of trust score by the team. So it's probably intuitive, but there's these studies that were done that back up what we all probably know. The other thing we talked about earlier, and this is just a chart I wanted to make sure was in here for any and all of you to use, is that the cost influence curve. So we want to engage in any of these projects, whether it's just traditional design build or flash track design build. We want to engage the parties that have the most knowledge, the maintenance, the construction, the suppliers, as early in the process as possible, because again, it's that pennies to dollars ratio, right? They can provide input in the very early beginning that is going to cost us pennies if we pay them for it, you know, for some consulting services or for some engagement early, versus when you get out further down the line and you're in the field and you have crews working and then some change comes up, well, the cost just skyrockets. So that's kind of our whole philosophy around everything that we do, whether it's flash track or just our traditional delivery model. So I just wanted to share this chart with you. So the last thing we wanted to talk about was okay, how do you know, some people hear this and they go, oh, okay, yeah, this thing, it needs to go fast, and so it's just the Wild West, right? Just go out there and do whatever you got to do. Well, it's not the Wild West. None of us want that. We have to maintain control. We can't just have an open, you know, bucket of money and it's just, you know, a hole in the bottom and it's just bleeding out of. So, you know, the truth is you probably are going to have more frequent probably project reviews, but they need to be effective. You know, sometimes we have these project reviews on a monthly basis or something that are very long, and there's a lot of information there that isn't necessary for a project review. You know, we need to make them efficient and more frequent because things are moving faster. We need to have robust project controls and KPI scorecard tracking. So we need to be able to quickly kick out information as close to live as possible as far as what's happening in the field, what's getting installed, what's not, what's the status of equipment delivery and buyout. And there's a lot of softwares now and systems and even AI systems that have been developed to help us be faster and faster and better at that. We don't skip steps. That's one of the biggest things I hear. It's like, oh, we got to move fast. Let's just skip steps. Let's skip the preliminary design effort and go straight into the final design and construction. It's a recipe for disaster. It doesn't mean that we have to skip steps. It means we probably have more steps, right? So maybe we have to take this preliminary design approval, design development approval, final design approval, and construction steps on a whole bunch of sub efforts within the project. So there's probably more steps, but we still need to go through a controlled process. We can overlap them some, we can do some things, but we don't want to skip the steps. We got to commit to increased communication. It's absolutely critical, as you know, when we're moving fast with anything or just in general. Our approval processes we talked about need to be simplified and streamlined, not eliminated. Not like, okay, just go do whatever you want. No, we need to simplify and streamline approval processes. There still needs to be a control aspect. We need to conduct people analysis like we talked about, right people, right seat. We need to do it for the people we're assigning to the project, make sure they have the open mind, make sure they have the teaming and supportive environment of each other, that kind of mindset, and do that when they're assigned to the project, and then regularly throughout. And if we see a crack, we need to address it quickly, because that crack can become a crevice, or a bad team member that doesn't get it, want it, or have the capacity to do it will become a cancer within the team. So we need to address those things. We need to hold ourselves accountable as management to address those things. We need to establish clear, simple to understand project specific procedures and protocols. So that's that's not a big book that sits on a shelf. It's clear, simplified, easy to understand, so that people can pull it off and actually use it. And again, as we mentioned, we have to hold people accountable. We have to do this analysis, and we have to, when things aren't working, when you're moving fast, a problem can become a major problem faster, right? So there's not time to say, oh, let's just let this linger and see what happens. No, we have to address this extremely fast, because everything's moving extremely fast. Those are just some of the recommendations related to maintaining control. So as I mentioned earlier, we kind of going through a big topic very fast. Hopefully this gives you a little idea of FlashTrack and what it is, of why sometimes it would make sense to implement FlashTrack and even fast track design build projects, and then as a way to develop your internal projects and execute them. And then quickly hit just a few. There's so many, we couldn't hit them all today, but quickly hit just a few lessons learned that we've learned, or I've learned personally in our execution of fast and FlashTrack projects, specifically FlashTrack. We do them fairly often within our team and our organization. We probably, in the last several years, we've probably done a couple like this a year, or a few at least like this a year, that for whatever reason need to be done. So we've learned some lessons. These were just high level lessons, but I wanted to share those with you. And then we kind of covered, how to still maintain control. It's not moving fast, doesn't mean like, hey, put the pedal to the metal and run into whatever you run into and it's the Wild West. That's not how any of us want to operate. So a couple ideas, again, high level, because there's only one slide, of how to maintain control. And we could do a whole seminar, 2 days on maintaining control and project controls in these types of environments. So hopefully it gives you a good general idea of the approach of how we get things done in this super fast environment that's going to become more and more prevalent. But we know it's high level. So if you have any questions, comments, please put them in the chat. Here has my contact information. You can reach out to me anytime. And then of course we have a virtual booth, and feel free at any time to stop by our virtual booth. And again, reach out through any of these mediums to any of us here at the Austin Company. This is something we're very passionate about. First, building and delivering projects, and second, facing the challenges of doing things very effectively, efficiently, with high quality, but faster than anybody else in the industry. So it's something we're very passionate about, and love to talk to you about it if you want to talk more. Thank you all for attending, and we'll talk to you soon.